really, and it became this, as you say, everybody thought Lewes, it's, well, they either think bonfire or they think Clothkits, they did become the largest private employer. And I was, Paul and I married in 75, and then we had our first child in 78. And really, there was just no question of me giving up work. I mean, it was just, you've got to carry on. And really, you know, Anafin allowed me that facility because I worked from home and then I came in once a week. And at that time, I mean, to work from home was really unusual. We're talking 30 odd years ago now. And they set up, there was a creche in 24 High Street that eventually my daughter went into. And that enabled me to carry on working. So there was no hiccup. It was a lovely continuous line. So that you know, for a company to have a creche at that time was very, very unusual. And in fact, it actually is today pretty unusual. People just don't have that facility. But of course, what's so lovely tonight is to see everybody's kits they've brought along. There's a lovely lady here that's got a kit of a little pinafore that she's actually embroidered. And interestingly enough, the design is very much a sampler type thing. So by doing embroidery on it, she's emphasised the story really. And I can't remember when that was from. That was probably in the early 70s. That one, I can't quite remember. But you said it was something to do with your daughter was.
My daughter was 3 in 74.
Okay,
so I would think there was 75.
75, probably was something like that in the summer.
She was very small.
Yes, indeed, yes. So now, of course, we've got there's the new Clothkits, and this here is a kit of the brand new Clothkitty, which is now from the new Clothkits, is owned by Kay Mara, who lives in Chichester, and. Interestingly enough, that particular kit, she managed to track me down via my daughter when she wanted to do this kit, but she couldn't write the instruction sheet. She didn't know how to do it. And I had this panic phone call saying, "Can you help me, please? Could you write this one for me? I know you were a designer." I said, well, bizarrely enough, it was almost 30 years ago to the month that she contacted me, and I said I was actually writing this 30 years ago. So I had to sort of get my head around it and do it again for her. But so things come back and bite you really after a while. You think it's all gone and then suddenly it appears again. But anyway, I have brought along 1 or 2 catalogues that I have from about 73. I don't have 72 for some reason, but I have right up to some of them up to the early 90s, and if anyone wants to look at them, by all means do. I really think it would be quite nice if anyone wanted to ask me questions, if you're happy. I mean, I'm probably just as long as you wanted me to, but I'm happy to continue if anyone wanted to ask me questions, because I know there's lots of people who've worked at Clothkits anyway, they will already know the story, and actually if you want to say something anyway, I think it'd be fabulous, you know, so please do.
Can you tell us how it expanded from what to where?
Well, from 1972, I don't recall how many people they employed. I mean, the figures, I wouldn't have the figures of the amount of people. What was actually quite nice, but by the time I left, they were certainly the largest private employer in 82, and I do believe that the turnover had gone up exponentially. Exact figures I'm not 100% certain on anyway, but they had something like 3 or 4 shops by the time I left. The amount of customers, maybe Joanna might know better the figures on that, I don't know, but the actual people on the mailing list was quite phenomenal. But they would send catalogues out to the best customers when they first got them in, and on the first 3 days of sales of those best customers, they then reordered on that. And you never quite get it right, but it's generally worked out. It generally worked out. But I don't know what the final turnovers were, because obviously Clothkits went on until the 90s, and I wasn't there at that point.
Where were the premises?
The premises were 24 High Street, which is now Wickle. but it was a whole building. And Clothkits made it bigger as well because they added on more offices above, and then also the adjoining 23 and 22, I can't remember thing, something like that, down the hill at the back on Broomans Lane. You went down and built. That's right, and it's now a block of flats, which that was all Clothkits as well. So that goes all the way back to Broomans Lane, if you're familiar with Broomans Lane. So the whole building went right across the back there, and then down 22.
Brickworks at the bottom of the road, isn't it?
Oh, as well, yes, of course it was. So it was huge, absolutely huge. The Turkish bath, yes. So there was really quite a lot of premises, and one of the nice things they did was there was a lot of women that they employed in their homes. There was an army of ladies over in Barkham. Well, mostly all Barkham, and run by Pam Duffel, wasn't it, Anne? And she would get ladies packing up haberdashery, this type of thing here. You know, somebody's got to put it in a bag with the threads and the instruction sheets and various bits and pieces, and so they would just get great bags of stuff and they'd have to put them all together. Sometimes they painted outlines for the kits, because when these were created, before they put this design on, the outline has to be painted, and that all was done out of the building, and then it turned up, and then the designer who was doing it would then put this design on, and then the screen would be developed and printed off, and then corrected if necessary, if there's any adjustments, and then it would go off to the printers for the whole print run. So there's quite a lot of work that goes into it. And I mean, when you design something like this, for instance, well, any kit actually, obviously you have to make sure it works. These, because they're clothes, you have to make sure they fit the size you say they fit, and then you have to, if there was different sizes, you had to check all of those patterns, make them all up, fit them on the right size people, and then the actual layout, which is what this is created, and that's really putting the pattern pieces on the fabric in the smallest space. You're creating like a jigsaw, but you're squashing it in as best as possible. So it's a reason you get exactly what you want in the least amount of fabric, and then from that you then order the screen. And oddly enough, there's a nice story about about Clothkitty. That was the first kit that was done of Clothkitty. It went out and everybody loved it. But there was an unusual spin-off really, because then the next season we did things like little girls' pinafore dresses, a bit like this one over here. And if you're doing a layout, you may find you've got a little space on the kit. So you might find you add another little patch pocket or a little girl's bag, and they would love it because it matched the dress. But then when you say, oh, there's another bit there, what can I do with that? And let's make a little doll's dress. So you make the doll's dress, and it may only have been on one of the kits, like a 2 to 4 and not the 5 to 8. And you do it, and people bought the kits for the doll's dress, which completely threw everybody, because you couldn't believe people did that. And then those that got the bigger size and didn't have a dress on were really miffed. So you couldn't keep everybody happy. But it was odd. The doll really had some odd spin-offs, really. But then, of course, we then did other things like whole kits for the doll. The doll then had a whole summer outfit, which of course you've got to have. But no handbag and no matching shoes. But there we go. This is an odd one, because this was got these different colours, because it was a strike-off. I think it was a kept and tutti frutti one, which sold very well. And there's also things like kimonos and sun hats, and all the best dressed dolls ought to have. So and that just kept on going. It was one of those really lovely miscellaneous type items that we put into the catalogue, really. Can
I pass it round?
Yes, by all means do. Yes, please. I'll just.
Was the baby changing kit a cloth?
Yes, yes. That was one of those things that I can remember coming, because at the time we lived in Ringmer, and I was coming in and out with a child in a pushchair and taking in work, and what with handbags and bags of nappies, which of course we didn't have any disposable things like that in those days. We had proper nappies and baby food and my work. I didn't know what to do with everything. I had so many bags. I looked like a bag lady, and I think it was Janet Kennedy, who kept saying you ought to design a kit bag, a changing bag for babies. And then I thought to myself, actually, I could do with one of those. And so I designed it to go on the back of this pushchair, this McLaren buggy I had. And it meant I could put lots of things in it, including my purse. And I dispensed with loads of bags. And of course, as you opened it out, there was the changing mat, and there was a place to put the nappies, and there was a place to put the baby's food, etc., etc. And that was another item that continued under the miscellaneous items that kept on selling.